Hi everybody, welcome back to the shop. I'm Gary. A while back I did a video on building the dashboard that's going to go in the 67 Valiant, and I wanted to, it was my first attempt at trying to do engine turning, you know, the swirls in the aluminum, and I'll show you some of it turned out okay, some of it I'm not real happy with. I wasn't going to redo it, but I've changed my mind and now I think I am going to redo it. So I'm going to kind of show you the process of what it takes to do this and how I'm going to do it, and we'll look at some of the parts that I've already made that I'm not very satisfied with, and I learned from my mistakes, and I'll explain kind of how that went as we go along here. So here on the bench in front of me are the panels that I originally made, and you know, so this is the panel obviously in front of the driver, 4 gauges cut out for the steering column to go in here. There's going to be turn signal indicators and some other stuff in here as well, but it didn't turn out as nice as I had hoped, and I made some mistakes. When you're doing this engine turning, it doesn't work really well if you're doing it against a sharp edge, and I didn't know that at the time. But what happens is it kind of wears the little stone, the little Kratex disc that's doing this, and it tends to make the pattern uneven afterwards. So what I'm trying to do here is get a more even, smooth pattern, and I'll show you, like, kind of, hopefully the camera can catch this, but without all the glare. So like this circle here is not really good, neither is that one. They don't look right, and I'm just not happy with the way they turned out. A few more over here, you know, after I learned that I shouldn't be cutting the holes in here first, I should be doing a flat panel. I kind of learned that. If we come over to this side of the bench, this is the piece that is going to be basically the glove box door, and as you can see, it turned out much better. Everything is smooth and consistent, and you know, not bad. I'm not going to remake this panel, but I am going to remake this panel. And then to complicate matters, both of these panels have got a bend in them, and that's because they have to fit down inside the dash, inside the way the dash is shaped, and so the ends of these panels are a little bit tricky. They have to be bent at the right angle, and then you have to get this to fit inside the dash properly. It's fidgety, but it's not impossible. But again, all of this has to happen after the turning is done, so you got to be careful about how that's going to happen. And then the same thing on the glove box panel. That's also bent and shaped, and you know, same thing. So because I'm going to remake this one, I figured I'd just show you real quick kind of the initial setup and kind of what's involved. We'll go over here to the mill, and here I'm just working on getting I'll turn this light on, it might wash it out, I don't know. And a little bit, but so I'm just kind of getting this set up here. I've got the piece of aluminum mounted on a piece of MDF that's cut square and true, so I can line it up and make sure all of the lines are straight. And then I've just cut these rubber pads, and they're going to protect the aluminum when I'm clamping this down to hold it in place, because there's going to be places where I'm going to use like a toe clamp on here, but, and I'll come over here, toe clamp like this, and obviously I'll protect this with tape and rubber and stuff like that, but I have to engine turn underneath where this clamp sits. So for at least part of the process, this clamp has to be removed. So I have to have other ways to hold it in place, which are going to be these, and I'll use a toe clamp over here, and then I'll just use a regular C-clamp, or maybe one of these can't twist clamps, and just clamp this down right here so that, you know, it's all held in place and it doesn't move around. There's not a lot of force required to this process, but it's tedious, and if you make a mistake, it's pretty obvious to see it, so you got to be careful. I will be using the DRO for all the spacing and all that stuff, and I'll show you that stuff as I'm doing it. I'm not going to bore you and make you watch, you know, the whole video, but I'll just kind of show you what's going to happen, how I do the engine turning, and then we're going to cut the holes in it. But I think I'm going to wait to do that until I get the dash back. The dashboard is actually at the painters right now. I'm supposed to have it back in about a week. Once I get the dash back and it's all painted and everything, then I'll do the layout on this piece and cut the holes in it. And I'm just basically going to use the mill. I'll use a hole saw to rough out the circles, and then I'll use the mill to cut out the spot for the Holley dash. That's what goes in here, is the 12-inch Holley dash. And then I've got 4 gauges, brake pressure, oil pressure, I think volts, and fuel that go in there. And then there'll be a large tack mounted above it. There's the motor that's going in. We're working on getting an alternator mounted there, and I think I've shown some of that process. And this is a 427 cubic inch aluminum block built by Late Model Engines. This is the LSR block from Concept Performance, and it's got a bunch of good parts in it. It makes a little over 700 horsepower at the crank, so that should get the Valiant down the road. And then these are some of the gauges that I'm going to be using. So I've got the tack, got water, that one's empty, but there's water, oil, brake pressure, and there's some more back there. So all these parts are all piled up waiting for the car to come back from the paint shop, and everything has to get installed. So, you know, away we go. My old Interceptor, bought that brand new in 1984. So anyway, we'll get a little bit farther down the road here, and I'll bring you back, and we'll see how things go. Okay, we're over here at the mill, and we're just doing the setup on this thing, and I wanted to kind of show you one of the challenges that I've got here. Because I'm not going to remake this piece, which is the glove box side, but I do want these circles to line up with the ones that I'm gonna do on the new piece. So to do that, what I have to do is basically lay this out on here like this. This is not final dimension. It's wider than it needs to be, but it's on purpose. Sorry about the camera work. I'm not used to holding it in my hand as I'm doing this. So what I want to do is I'm going to use probably the top edge of this and line that up, and that's going to be, that's going to be my top surface. So what I want to do is I want to align the center point of these swirls with the center point you know, as so it'll translate into the same thing on the new piece. So when you look down at all the lines of swirls will be in exactly the same place. So I think the easiest way to do that is, I know this edge is straight. I put a straight edge on it and checked it, and it's within a few thousandths. So I think I'm going to just use that as my reference point. So what I'm doing here to line it up and make sure that it is square and true on the actual mill table. As you can see here, hopefully, I'm just using a pointer, and the pointer is just basically right on the edge. And I'm not sure if that's going to be in focus or not, but I'm just lining that pointer up right on the very edge of the metal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive the table in the other direction. Now, if I get that point nice and square and true, and see if we can do this without making shadows, right on the very edge of the aluminum. This is really kind of hard to see with this camera shot, but you can see what I've got is basically the alignment from one end to the other is exactly the same. So that tells me that they're going to be straight as they go down here. So that's part of the setup. So now I have to clamp the board in place, and the aluminum is held down to the board with these clamps, but I need to hold this end of the board because it can move. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a toe clamp right on here to the board, hold that down, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, we got the setup everywhere. We got everything set. I found my zero position on the X and Y axis, so that the circle that I make in here is basically going to flow through from the circle in the glove box piece. This is a Kratex disc. It's just basically hard rubber with abrasives embedded in it, and I have the mill set to about 800 RPM. That's not super critical, but you know, we don't want it too fast, and hopefully that light's not blowing everything all out. I've got my DRO all zeroed out, and I'm using the incremental on this so I can come back and with the absolute and find zero. So I'm basically just going to touch off now, and I'm going to make the first row. I'm going to go from here to here, and each increment will be 3/4 of an inch. Like that, and we remove the table 3/4 of an inch using the DRO. It makes it pretty easy. Touch it again. Another 3/4 of an inch. Again, and we basically just keep doing that until we get the whole thing from one end to the other all done. So I'm not going to make you watch through the whole thing, but I'll probably show you some progress photos along the way. So there you go. Obviously not going to film the whole thing. It took about 3.5 hours to do the entire long panel from one end to the other, but it turned out pretty nice. I'm happy with it, much happier than the original. So live and learn. And here's a few pictures of it, of the finished product. So again, I'm learning engine turning and kind of, making mistakes as we go. And I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm not afraid to show them to you. So hopefully you can learn along with me and, have some fun. So anyway, I want to say thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.